Yeah. Time's wasted. Well, all right. So I appreciate everyone being here today. This is my 18th budget we've gone through, and honestly, I'm just going to speak at a high level about my thoughts on it, and then I'm going to really turn it over to Elliot and Lisa. Elliot has really ran point on the budget this year, and part of that is just him growing into his role. So I'm going to have him speak in detail about the budget and go through this presentation. But I just want to talk about perspective about where we've been and kind of where we're going. So I'm really proud of the fact that here we sit here today looking at a 2025 budget with a flat tax rate, which really would then bring our tax rate back to where we were in 2020. So that's in 5 years, we're literally back. If you look back 5 years, we're back to that tax rate. And while doing that, we've made some significant investments in our community. And one of the things, Ellie and I were at a town government academy class the other night. And if you recall, Cecilia and team, we were at a Connor Prairie retreat when we talked about doing these big audacious ideas, you know, the event center, the community center. Can you let Selena in? Oh, there we go. Just started. So, we talked about the community center, the event center, and then City Hall. And those are big projects. And I had hatched out a scheme that said, okay, I think if we do it this way, we'll be able to do it without raising property taxes. And I'm proud to say where we sit here today, we've accomplished that. We will have brought these projects on without raising our tax rate. In fact, we've backed our tax rate down to a 2020 rate. So I'm really proud of the fact that we've been able to invest all this and keep that tax rate low. I'm also really proud of our employees, our headcount. We continue to maintain a pretty thin headcount. We're not bloated in any department. We ask a lot of our people. We've asked them to innovate and try new things. For instance, our health insurance, this is a big highlight in my opinion. You know, we took the leap a few years back to go on to this community direct plan where all of our employees use community health exclusively. And we're one of the only, I think we're one of the only governmental entities in the state that went and negotiated a direct contract with a healthcare provider. And we had a kind of a one-of-a-kind agreement, if you remember, where we said over a 5-year period, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of the details here, Elliot, because you were in the weeds on negotiating this, on over a 5-year period, in any year, they guaranteed that our healthcare costs wouldn't go more than 3% for typical healthcare costs, and then 8% for pharmaceuticals. And if we actually reduced our healthcare costs over each year, they might even contemplate reducing our next year's premium by 2%. We had a renewal meeting, would it be our fourth renewal meeting? Third renewal meeting this last week, and our employees did a great job this year, and our health insurance costs are actually going to reduce by 2%. That's the second time it's reduced by 2%, and the other time it was flat. So the national average for this upcoming year for health insurance costs is the increase is somewhere between 7 to 11%. Ours is reducing 2%. That's a massive savings to taxpayers. It also affords us the opportunity to compensate our employees. And that's something that I feel strongly about this year. I always do, but our employees are doing a great job. The workforce is competitive today. There's a lot of opportunities in the private sector, and there's a lot of pressure on inflation, like everyone's feeling. So we try to manage our money appropriately to be able to support our employees. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Other than that, there are some updates to fees. One of the things I think is important, and we don't always do a great job about this, we need to continue to get better, is updating our fees more periodically. So if you take, for instance, our EMS billing or ambulance billing, we haven't updated the rates on that for over a decade. And so think about what the costs have done when it comes to purchasing ambulances, manpower costs, pharmaceutical costs. And so Chief Arusa took a hard look at what our rates are, and we have an update that we think we should move forward with in terms of ambulance billing. And then secondly is our sewer rate. We've done a sewer rate study. The sewer rate study came back with a variety of recommendations. We looked at that and said, well, we think we can do better than that. We don't think we need to raise it to that extent. And so we're going to be recommending a $3 a month increase in the sewer rate. We have not addressed sewer rates, I believe, in over 10 years, probably, or 8 years. So again, these are things that we should probably get, as Brad Dreamer would say, probably get on a more routine. Every couple of years, maybe you're looking at a 25-cent increase or a 50-cent increase versus, $3 or $5. But even that, if you look at a $3 increase a month, and we haven't raised it in 10 years, and we'll hopefully show you in some of these slides, or we can provide later, our sewer rate will still be among one of anywhere in the state. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elliot to really walk you through the details of the budget. And then just know too, next meeting will be the department heads, where you can really get granular if you'd like and really ask some kind of pointed questions about the specifics of each budget. But I'm confident Elliot can answer the vast majority of your questions this morning.
Absolutely. All right. Well, duck and dodge them really, really well. Okay. So next slide, please. Let's just get right into it. As the mayor pointed out, this is where we've been, where we're at, where we're going. So we met last week at our normally scheduled finance committee meeting. We had Mike Reuter attend, really deep dive into the fiscal plan, which was a great conversation, I believe. And then as anticipated, local government finance came out with their release of the lit estimates following that meeting. And so we are going up $1.1 million in local income tax from 24 to 25. I know this is a broken record. You guys have heard the mayor and myself and Lisa say this a number of times, though. Compared to Carmel's going up $8.2 million, right? So we're 1.1, Carmel's 8.2. So they'll receive 65 million, we'll receive 36. And of course, further discussions on that, of course. So again, today is a high level budget presentation. Monday morning, bright and early at 8:30, we'll bring in department heads to really talk through their detailed budgets, which all pulled together adds up to the numbers we'll discuss today. We've got another scheduled finance committee meeting. If you guys would like to discuss anything further before we present formally during the September City Council or in October approval. All right, next slide. So let's just highlight some of the things that occurred in 2024 before we really dive into 25 here. Last year, significant capital investment, a $12 million initiative on a variety of things, right? So we put $750,000 into the Neighborhood Vibrancy Grant program, wildly successful. 46 different neighborhoods took advantage of that program and are doing some fantastic things. Really proud of that. We've got $1 million in sidewalk repairs, over $2 million in landscaping medians and roundabouts. And hopefully you guys have heard some positive praise as well. But I think that's one of the most successful programs we've had to get a lot of positive feedback from our residents in that regard.
And I think just real quick there, I can't tell you how impactful also the sidewalk repair was. Put things in perspective, we fixed every sidewalk panel in Sunblest, Windermere, Avalon, and there were 3 or 4 other neighborhoods that all got their sidewalks completely repaired. We would never be able, I shouldn't say never, but it would take us years for our internal team to be able to provide that level of service. All of this stuff that Elliot's talking about was possible because of the one-time allotment of money we got from the Carmel deal we had. So that just gives you a perspective. If we were to right the ship on income tax, what you would be able to accomplish had that money been there on an annual basis.
Okay, so Geist Greenway opened. Some of you guys were out there for that ribbon cutting, exciting project. Community Center broke ground. We just put the last beam up a few weeks ago, and then we will open up the event center here in November. So a lot of great quality of life initiatives coming to closure in 24. And then last year, we did invest a significant amount in new personnel, 3 additional firefighters, school resource officers, police officers. You can see the list down there. And 25 will highlight really very limited in the number of headcount we're adding to the 25 budget. Okay, let's keep going here. This is the Lisa Bradford's really good at her job slide. And you guys are great stewards of the city's money. So we continue to be extremely strong. 35th straight year of the CMA for excellence in financial reporting, 17th straight year for distinguished budget presentation. So we've done this pretty well for a number of years. Okay, so the mayor kind of hit on most of these already, but we're proud to propose a flat property tax rate. So the fourth year in a row, it's either flat or declined. So we're back to the 2019-2020 property tax rate. We will continue to invest in our neighborhoods. So we put $200,000 into the Neighborhood Vibrancy Grant Program and $50,000 in nominal amount to continue to invest in the Teacher Innovation Program as well. We'll talk, say again,
How much in the neighborhood vibrancy
$200,000,
as opposed to?
750 last year, that's 750,000. So in previous years, 23 and before that, it was always $200,000. Last year, we were able to do $750,000 out of that one-time money. So this is $200,000 coming out of our general fund.
We're not
For neighborhood vibrancy.
certain, Bill, I think what happened with the 750 is we cleared out a lot of HOA's wish lists. And we were able to knock out a lot of them. I feel pretty confident that $200,000 is an adequate amount this upcoming year because HOAs don't have enough money to do that back-to-back years. You know, we exhausted a lot of big projects for different neighborhoods. So I think 200 probably gets us there. And, you know, if it isn't, we can revisit it. But I mean, 750, we did 46 neighborhoods.
Was there more demand than that?
We
ran out of money.
We did run out of money. There were a handful of neighborhoods that the committee chose not to award funding to.
No, we didn't get the quarter three or quarter four. Nobody could apply.
Yeah, we had two rounds this year, correct?
But originally, we're gonna have 4 rounds.
We were gonna do as long as we had the money left to
Okay.
send money towards.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what about like, Brookstone, what's the Brook School
Brookson
neighborhood,
Place.
Brookson Place? You know, we had some conversations last year about trying to see if we could do some vibrancy on some of these other ones that are
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean-
dilapidated a little bit, that need a little love. Brook School Chase or Brooks Chase.
Chase and Brookson Place are the two you're referring to.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's any plan.
Brooks Chase did have funding allocated towards
Okay.
them. I don't believe Brookston Chase did. I don't know that they applied. But Brooks Chase did get funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and remind me where the one-time money came.
Carmel.
Yeah, Carl, thank
It shows our cash reserves of the general fund in our fiscal plan, but it's through the Carmel legislation. Yeah. Okay, big point of this year's budget will be seeding the community center, right? So we're gonna start an entire new business, if you will. So we'll be hiring those folks throughout 24 for October, November opening. So we need to set them up for success by seeding that fund. And of course, it's not much of a seed, so we don't talk about roads. So we have a fair amount of investment into our road resurfacing, road infrastructure, and trails for 25 those as well. Okay, so this is the high level, right, for 25. So 100, just shy of $150 million for operating capital. When you layer in our debt service obligations, we're at $182.5 million all in for the 25 budget. All of our cash reserves, general fund, and others is north of $62 million. Okay, so we'll talk about our two largest revenue streams, property tax and income tax. We'll see a property tax in 25 projected just over $32 million. Fairly modest growth for the last 5 years, year over year on property tax, which is now our second largest revenue stream. Lit being larger than that. We want to go to the next slide. This again talks to our property tax rate over the last several years. So we are again proposing a flat at 0.707. You can see really significant drop from 21 through present day today. So we are actually pre-2020 property tax rates. Again, that's our proposal to this committee next year. And it's important to note, when compared to our largest Hamilton County municipalities, right, we are the lowest and proposing to stay the lowest relative to Westfield, Carmel, and Milledgeville for our residents here. Okay, income tax. So this is our largest source. Again, I mentioned we were increasing $1.1 million from 24 into 25. We'll receive 13.8% of the total lit distribution to Hamilton County. Last year, just putting things in perspective here, 24 to 25, lit distribution to Hamilton County will increase by $28 million. And Fishers will receive an additional 1.1 million of that overall $28 million. You see there. In our fiscal plan, you'll see projected next year, Noblesville will last year receive more income tax than the city of Fishers if things maintain the way they are presently. Okay, so deep diving into the general fund, right? So we are projecting $87.5 million in total revenue. We are recommending expenses of $87.5 million there. So big chunk of that obviously is our personnel, supplies, contractual labor and capital, but obviously personnel, that's including salary and benefits, takes up the large majority of our 25 budget.
One thing you just said there, I want to make sure I got this correct from what you just said. We're getting 87.5 million in revenue. We're expensing 86.8 million with,
Sorry, 87.4.
okay, gotcha.
What's the unused appropriation?
That is, we assume that at the end of the year, there are just gonna be people that don't run through their budgets, whether that's a savings in personnel where they've lost a position, it's just attrition. Contractual services, something that didn't pan out or things like that. So
It's been standard. Reuters started this 20 years ago in our fiscal plan. If you really want an accurate forecast of what your cash balances are going to be moving forward, there's an assumption built in that we never actually spend our full appropriations. And so that's just an average number, I guess, if you will. And it's usually
it's pretty close.
we usually exceeded it, honestly. We usually put more cash back than that, but we try to plug that in for forecast.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, great. Into the details a little bit of our operations. To the mayor's point, we're really focused on investing in our existing teammates and staff. We're recommending a 6% salary increase, full-time, part-time elected officials across the board for our employees. Additionally, we've got really great utilization of the 457 match as it is. Currently match up to $1,500. We're recommending an additional $1,000 of the city contribution, matching up to $2,500 for our folks to really take care of the futures. $3 million in fleet replacement, that's standard. Every single year, we're really trying to hold the line on that number. That buys us a handful of items, most notably 18.
Fire truck and ambulance, that's it,
There
right?
you go, pretty much. Yeah, honestly, in 18 police vehicles. So we can get into the details on Monday as to exactly what that fleet replacement plan looks like, but you're spot on. So it's public works replacements, it's it's police vehicles, and it's fire. The only real new additions rather than replacements would be to invest some additional money into our agri park, expansion of our agri parks. We need some additional equipment there for that.
So just so I'm not sure we've touched a lot on this with council. Our intent is to build a second agri park on the west side of town on Allisonville Road. We're working through our relationship with the airport currently. They have a bunch of land at 106th and Allisonville. They cleared all the trees out, but they don't do anything with it because it's a flight path. And the agri park has been so unbelievably popular that we think we could bring that to the west side of town too and have two different locations closer for folks on the west side to be able to access it. And so we're working through the arrangements with the airport right now, but we're really, really excited about that opportunity.
That's on that plot ground where the lift station is?
Yep. Yeah.
Northwest corner of that, yeah. So there are some restrictions as to what can be built or even planted there, right? So right now, our existing staff is looking at specifically what they can do. There'd be a flower, kind of natural flower garden there, and some items, but pretty excited about that.
It's owned by the airport.
And it will always be owned by the airport because they have to preserve it, but we could use it. And I think we could really clean up that corner and really make it look
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
and then activate it. Frankly, have people out there. There's maybe even some trails through there and stuff. So we're pretty excited about that, but there's no way Farmer Trevor, as we call him, can do all of that on the far east side and then not have someone. What we would plan on doing is 25 would be just a building here, like just get it in order. 26 we would open is the goal right now.
Will the building have restrooms?
Great question. That's a sore subject when we do plan to have a building built on our current Hager Park, hopefully in the next 6 to 8 months, for restrooms. West Side's a great question. We have to work through what's available and what's allowed with the airport. But obviously we'll work towards that. There's a big sewer line right there. I know that.
This is the Indianapolis Airport Authority.
Yes. We've got a great working relationship with them. Think about what we did with Andretti, and so they've been great to work with. And they actually sold us 20 acres at Ritchie Woods too, to expand Ritchie Woods. We bought all the trees there and brought that into the nature preserve. So they've been fantastic to work with today. So I don't anticipate a ton of issues with it. One thing I wanted to touch on here, and I have bad eyesight, so I assume it's on here. We're making really good progress on our school resource officers. We started a program this year, and I think it's pretty unique. If you recall, our relationship with schools is they pay 50% of salary and benefits. We pay the other 50% of salary and benefits for school resource officers. We currently do not have a school resource officer in every building in our school system. That's where we want to get to. And one of the creative ways we looked at doing that is we came up with a program in partnership with Chief Gephardt to build out a job description that allows a police officer, let's say someone who wants to retire from law enforcement, can come get hired on with us to be a school resource officer. You get salaries and benefits, but it's less than what you would if you were a full-time police officer. You don't get a police car, but what you do is you get assigned to a building and you work the exact same schedule as what a teacher would work. So you get your whole summer off, you get Christmas, the breaks, all of that, and you only work the hours that school is available. And we weren't sure whether or not there'd be a market for that with police officers. We did our first posting this spring, and we got a handful of great candidates, and there are actually 2 now on staff that are working. One of them worked for like 18 years as a school resource officer full-time in another place. And so he's coming over here because what they can do is they can retire, collect their pension, and then start over. So we're going to keep doing that and try to build this out. Our ultimate goal is to have a school resource officer in every building in our school system. That's our goal. But there's 19 buildings, so this is not an overnight thing. And the other thing I'm really proud, Chief Gephardt and the police department has had, and it's been this way ever since George was police chief. They want to put the right people in the schools. So, I mean, it's going to take a while to find the right candidates to put in there, but it's a good program that's saving both the schools and the city tax dollars while also improving safety.
Yeah, and so to validate the mayor's eyesight, it does have 2 new SROs listed for the 25 budget, specifically towards that program. We also, back to the Agri Park, we are recommending an additional employee for the Agri Park. We have 2 employees, full-time employees, listed in there to support our trash billing and payments as we take on that task starting in January of 25.
And I do want to take a moment to talk about that because there's been a lot of kind of noise out there about this admin fee on the trash contract, and that's part of the budget conversation. If you look in here, it's included in here as a revenue stream in the general fund. That $2 admin fee is really important for us to be able to provide the customer service level that we want to provide to residents. One of the reasons we decided to take on the trash contract in the sense of residents calling us versus calling Republic or whoever we would have decided to take on is we want to own the customer service side of this. And in order to do that, we have to staff that appropriately. And frankly, we have to put the right software and technology in place to make sure that it's a streamlined opportunity for residents. We cut our teeth on this when we bought the sewer utility. And I can tell you that's been a knockdown, drag out battle for the controller's office, for our technology team, everybody, to try to make sure that we have the right systems in place to make sure it's easy for people to access. And I was just dealing with a resident yesterday with this very issue. So I'm a little bit unapologetic, I guess, about the $2 admin fee, because I want to make sure that when a resident calls here, there's a staff person that picks up the phone and is able to deal with that issue. And then also, if someone wants to go online on their mobile phone and deal with whatever issue they might have with the city, whether that be sewer, storm, trash, what have you, we've got to have the technological infrastructure to be able to do that. So I just want you to know that admin fee really is envisioned to ensure that we can provide the utmost customer service for our residents. The other thing I'll tell you about that is, if we didn't do it, assume that the rate would have been higher by the trash company. Like, it's not like you take the $2 away and say, Republic, you do it, and that Republic's gonna do it for free. There would have been an increase. Now, what that dollar amount is, I don't know, but assume there would have been some component of it that Republic was said, if I have to take on all the burden of billing, it's gonna cost. And Lisa, what is the bill? What does it cost to put out a paper bill every month?
It is about 75 cents to $1 per paper bill.
And so one of our missions in life right now is to try to get everyone off paper billing, but that's more difficult than one might think. We're probably what, 30% that are paid non-paper?
Paper, 30, yeah, about, 30% that are non-paper. We have a very diehard group of people that are
They want their
paper,
bill,
they
yeah.
want their paper.
So we're working towards that, but if you think about a $2 a month fee, when $1 of it right now is just getting them the bill. So we're gonna try to become more efficient at that, but we've got some work to do on
The
that.
reality, just kind of thinking through, the reality of it is, we have to stand up, we have to hire personnel, bring technology in, get that technology working. We have, have a customer service component. So we're gonna be in a hole for a while on that $2. That $2 fee is gonna catch up
Yes.
on the investment we're gonna have to make to do that. So
You think about 32,000 customers is what we're taking on. And half of those people will be changing over their trash company. And then the other component of that is like HOAs. So HOAs are no longer gonna be doing the billing. So we just think of the confusion that's going to happen for the first 6 months as we work all this out. And that's one thing we learned on the sewer deal was, I thought, we'll turn the light switch on in January and it'll all work easily. But John, as you know, having worked on mergers and acquisitions, getting all your databases right, sorting out all the kind of exceptions to the rule, we're probably another 6 or 8 months away from even having sewer really down like clockwork. So, we'll get there. But we did want to fund it appropriately so we don't screw it up. And frankly, the last thing I want to do is save people money on trash and then they're still frustrated because we're providing poor customer service. Like, that's a loss.
And I think the thing is too, and we found this out with the HSC is that acquisition, is that I think there was an expectation that each problem that someone called in with was going to be very easily solvable, that you could get someone in and off the phone in, 30 seconds to a minute. And that has not been the case. And I would envision that to be the same as we do this trash.
We had a gentleman yesterday, 2 days ago, he got hacked and all of his bank information got taken. And so he's trying to figure out how to pay a sewer bill, but his bank's locked down. And so to Lisa's point, that's not like a standard. We're trying to help them out, but these are complicated issues and we want to make sure we have the people to pick up the phone and do it. Sorry about that.
All good.
Yeah,
For the line item for the new agri park in this budget.
I'm sorry.
With the line item for the new agri park in this budget.
So it'll be through the general fund, so it's a handful of items, so it'll be a new employee. We have that listed at, what's the salary amount?
I want to say 50, 55.
Okay, so it's $100,000
Roughly 100,000.
for salary benefits, $100,000 for the fleet equipment as well. So that's what we have allocated towards that new agri park this year.
Do we have to rent the land?
Probably not.
They let us do it.
There's some value to them and us maintaining it. Because like, if you looked at it recently, they just let it go and then they have to pay someone to come in and clear cut it.
Yeah.
And then now all the trees and brush are growing back up again.
Yeah.
And so they'll be back out. So having a farmer come out and actually just maintain it may be to their advantage. And if they do charge, they'll be nominal. I mean, when we bought Richie Woods, it was,
But Richie Woods is very low. We only
Yeah.
paid 4,500 a month for
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 years on it. So it's but that was for 20 acres, I think, for
Yeah.
Richie Woods. So
The last one on this slide, I want to know is one additional role of a community services officer. So this would be a police department employee, civilian, not sworn police officer, just as we become.
we call this the Bill Stewart position.
There you go.
This is someone who can own parking issues. So, part of our challenge here in our organization is when one of you call or a resident calls, or there's a concern about parking, engineering owns a little bit of it. Our planning department owns a little bit of it. Police owns a little bit of it. We want to have a community service officer within the police department that can enforce the rules and then work through the issues in neighborhoods around parking. Celine and I could call it the Harrison Township.
I need this person.
Alhuda. Yeah, so this is not going to be a sworn police officer. This is not, we're not hiring someone that goes through ILEA, although we could hire a retired police officer. It'll be a lower salary. But parking issues, VIN checks, like when people need their VIN checks checked on their car, having them do this, car seats, actually, believe it or not, we get a lot of calls for installing car seats correctly. So this person is kind of an all hands on deck, be out there, but what it does is it frees up the time and capacity of the people who are carrying guns, who are expensive, to go do what we need people who carry guns to do. And it's kind of a goodwill ambassador to our community on events and things like that too. So we're excited about bringing this person on so that we can, as you guys all know, having heard a lot of these concerns, some of these are just complicated and messy. And we need someone that's like, this is the person that knows all the players involved and they're gonna own that issue versus the random police officer on shift that gets called out there that's like, what's the deal? Like, what is the issue? You know, I don't want to be here. I want to go chase bad guys kind of thing. So. Yeah, or a car seat, right?
Okay, next two slides, we're gonna cover down on these rate adjustment proposals we have. First one is sewer. So again, as the mayor stated earlier, recommending a 3 rate increase, for sewer. And my math says this is only the second rate increase, over the last 27 years. Again, full transparency, we need to do a better job of a more consistent approach to this. And then you recall we did, the acquisition. So we have 2 different rates, right? So we have the old HSE utility rate and the legacy city rate. And so we'll maintain that difference going forward. We don't want to put it on the backs of just one side or the other. And so that $3 adjustment, these numbers are hard. I'll kind of point you, right? So this is Fisher's legacy.
Yeah.
And this would be the proposed, right? And then this is our Fisher's expanded. So the HSE utilities, 39.79, bump that to 42.79. All of these, right? So Carmel, Plainfield, Zionsville, Noblesville, and the big cities, South Bend, Fort Wayne, Evansville, still have larger sewer rates than what our new proposal would be. I think the justification is there, right? We haven't done the city legacy one in 27 years, or only once the last 27 years, and only once the last 8 years for HSC. And so chemicals cost more money, preventative and corrective maintenance cost more money. So this allows us to continue to be effective and efficient as a sewer utility.
I certainly can contest to us buying, look at, it's the sewer rate west of 69, east of 69, more or less.
Yeah.
And I can see on my side of 69, just, I used to get complaints all the time about the lift station 106 in Cumberland, and that has improved dramatically. So.
Yeah, that was a go, no go for us. If we acquire this thing, we've got to make sure Councilman Weingart doesn't call us.
Yeah, right.
It was commonly called the roundabout for many years.
Jonathan Valenta's done a great job.
Yeah, he's great.
So what,
Go ahead. And additionally, Westfield, all the way farther right, Citizens, I mean, they sold their utility.
Right. Yeah,
Look at where they're at compared to us.
yeah, absolutely.
so question, this $3 rate increase, you think that it would stay stable for the next how many years? Because do you think it would be important for like finance committee to put in place a policy like we're going to review
I think it's
this
a great idea.
in,
I'd say
2 years
2 to 3 years. I think it's a great
and I'll
idea.
just say, this is what we're going to do and
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Little incremental increases.
I think it would be great if you guys came up with a policy that would drive, frankly, us, because talking about revenue drives me crazy. Every 3 years, we should be reviewing at least a series of our revenue streams, and then it doesn't have to be all of them in the same year. We could stagger it. But like stormwater fees, sewer fees, building permit, I mean, there's all of these fees we have, parking back fees, road back fees, that we should be evaluating. And, we really don't get around to it because we're busy. And then all of a sudden, we're 20 years later going, boy, we really need to move the needle on this.
and then people get upset.
Yes.
And so they're going, I can see this now. Well, you're not changing the rate, the tax rate, it's flat, but you're increasing my sewer. So you know, it's still a tax. I don't know.
It is a
So,
great idea, right? So,
But-
we anticipate probably one more, capacity increase to our sewer utility sometime in the next decade, potentially, right? But to talk about this every 2 to 3 years, would be great to adjust, like, hey, is our population trending as, we expected to where, yes, we need to have a massive capital project for a sewer utility or not? And where, you know, an additional rate adjustment may be necessary.
And I think, go ahead, Sue.
Can you put together a grid or something where a timeline for us that maybe, you know, for us to have as a committee and say, okay, it's now time for the
Yes.
review of these rates and.
And there's nothing wrong with us saying we're not gonna change it. Like, it doesn't hurt to look at it and go, you know what, it should stay the way it is. But we should at least be reviewing it to take a look at it. And, you know, to the people who say, oh, well, you're taxing me anyways. Philosophically, as like a small government guy, I believe that we've been able to keep our tax rate as low as we have. Is because one, we're not bloated in the head count. And two, we have a kind of a fiscal policy that says we put certain costs on the actual user and we diversify our revenue streams. I would always rather do that than have a high tax rate that isn't reflective of how I actually consume services. So I think that's an important component of it too. And we need to diversify our revenue streams, right? Like, it's important to have a variety of different revenue streams because when one fails, you got to have a backup to be able to provide core services. So I think we have a pretty good mix of revenue streams. Certainly won't stop people from saying what they're going to say on Facebook, but I think this is $3. If you were to break that down over 10 years, that's a pretty low rate of inflation.
And so you guys remember, as we talk about the utilities, sewer and stormwater, are both operated as enterprise funds. So they are only used for, you know, that each respective utility operation. So all the sewer user fees are going towards sewer related expenses, vice versa for the stormwater. You know, one of the things when we looked at doing that you can do that we do not have in our current rate ordinance in Fishers, but I believe Carmel does, is an amount like that you can say arbitrarily each year will adjust for inflation, or you can put up to a certain, they get to have it in their rate ordinance that without doing the full rate study. Because you usually need a rate study to support your rate increase, which does have a cost investment to it. But in your ordinance, if you say, I have the right, if I so choose to adjust according to the inflationary rate, so whether that's, you know, 2%, CPI, I can adjust that way. And that's something to consider, because then that does help eliminate the need every year or every couple of years for a rate study of an expensive sort. But
I do also want to just note, we did do a rate study on this. And the rate study came back saying that we had the justification to raise rates $8 a month. And we spent a lot of time challenging those variables, challenging those assumptions, and looking at what do we really need to maintain. And we think $3 is appropriate to be able to meet the needs, to Cecilia's point, not just for next year, but really for the next 3 to 5 years. I think we're gonna be okay with that rate increase.
I just want to say about the HSE acquisition.
Yeah.
So one day I was out at an event and I ran into two ladies that worked at the office, and they were telling me about their perspective of this. And they said, oh my gosh, we were so afraid that the city of Fishers was going to come in and fire everybody and we were going to be without a job, and so left because they were afraid. And I just looked at them and I said, this isn't a hostile takeover. I said, that's not going to be the administration's plan. And they went on just praising how they love the city of Fishers.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I think we've done a good job of, I think our billing rate or our collection rate, I think we've improved that, frankly. And there's still revenue out there that we're working on getting. But, you know, Lisa won't sleep until we collect every dollar. But we're getting better. We're getting more proficient at that. It just takes time. But one of the things, again, I guess going back to these projections and promises, we told residents that we were going to be able to acquire that utility and not raise rates because of it. And I can honestly say now, multiple years in the past, we didn't and we aren't. The rate increases that you see here are truly about the operational expenses associated with. If you look at electricity, Duke's got a rate increase appeal right now in front of the IURC for an 18% increase in energy costs. One of the biggest, if not the largest expense for our sewer utility is electricity. If it goes up 18%, that's a big number for us to have to cover. So, and it probably won't go up 18%, but it's gonna go up something. And we just want to make sure that we have the revenue to meet those needs.
Help me understand the 39 point, is that a 79?
Yeah,
What's that number compared to the 34 that we're raising to?
so there are two different rates because they're under two different utilities. So initially, if you were in Hamilton Southeastern customer, you were $39.79. And if you were inside of the 69 City of Fishers customer, you were 31. So because there are two rates that people are charged. And then when we merge the utilities and did the acquisition, the two rates stay the same. So it is literally, so then it'll be 42.79 for like west of the 69.
Okay, 31.
So
So then
the
you-
good news in your district, Bill, is you're the 31.
You're 31 going to
So there's
34.
some people out there that pay 39.
I'm
and they're
79.
Going up to 42.
To 70, yeah.
So the real rationale behind that is when we bought the utility, the debt associated with the cost of that utility is being really borne by the people that live in that area. So we didn't want to, for instance, for you.
Are they city residents?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for instance, if I didn't want Bill Stewart living in his district, who was part of the old Fishers utility, to have his rate increase $10 to pay for the acquisition. So instead, we just kept them at what they were already being billed because we said, hey, that's the cost of us acquiring your utility and you're going to bear the burden of that. Long term, when the debt associated with that acquisition rolls off, then really that district's rate should come down.
Secondarily, sometimes when sewers are owned by private utilities, they do a good job or a bad job. I assume you went through this with their due diligence on keeping up with the infrastructure needs of the system. What's the age of the system? Who's go through the town? Is this through?
Valenta.
Jonathan Valenta,
And so when he comes to us, will he be able to tell us, like
Absolutely.
age estimates of the sewers and what's gonna go next? And are we keeping up?
Correct. And I'll tell you, just kind of anecdotally, it was about what we expected it to be. So we did a significant amount of due diligence. They pipe the system all the time to understand potential failure points, things of that nature. The system is about what we anticipated. So are we fixing some things with preventive maintenance? Absolutely. Are some things lasting longer than we anticipated? Yes. Or are some things failing earlier? Yes. But we didn't get a lemon per se.
the other thing you guys at the finance committee should keep an eye on is when we purchase this utility, we actually purchased land or part of the territory is actually Noblesville. It runs from north of I-69, kind of right where Oleo Road is, and it goes east all the way to the county line. And so like the innovation mile that Noblesville talks a lot about, even where their new arena's going, all of that sewer is actually in our utility. And then it gets pumped down to us to use. So as they grow, that will also be a new revenue stream for the city as well. And so and really the relationship with Noblesville has been great. We've been able to work through a variety of issues, but you do have growth in your utility that's even outside of the city of Fishers.
Well, I would think, to Cecilia's point, if we're, for lack of a better word, if we're indexing the rate structure every few years or looking at it every few years, that's got to be overlaid with the age of the infrastructure.
Agreed. Sure.
And that's part of the sewer rate study takes into account the capital. It includes a 5-year capital plan. So what that does is Jonathan goes out and says, what are my anticipated, capital that I need to repair in the next 5 years? And that includes that preventative maintenance or replacing the aging
I do think you're spot on, Bill, about one thing in particular, and that is just like our roads, just like everything else. Over the next decade, what's gonna happen is we're gonna shift from conversations about capacity, building more capacity to maintenance and the age of things, you know, and that'll switch from availability fee, like a lot of what we do, like a plant expansion, lift station expansion is funded one of two ways. The private developer funds it, or our availability fund, like the fees that people pay when they build something new. Those will dry up. And then when we got to go do a new or replace a force main or repair a lift station, that's really gonna have to come out of our sewer rate. We haven't had to do a lot of that because a lot of our sewer is brand new. But over time, the pressure on your sewer rate's gonna increase because all that new growth money's gone. And now the demand for repair is gonna be higher. And so that's just a natural, we're gonna have to watch that. I think you're spot on that that'll be a pressure point for sure.
But I would assume we're better off than most old cities
Oh, yeah.
because our pipes are newer.
They're newer. We're not CSO, so we're not combined, which is huge. Yeah, we do have areas like in Old Town where we've had to get aggressive on what's called like in situ form, where you go in and you realign, you know, so we've been doing a lot of that. We did some over in the orchards this last year. I think there was a project. And then we have failures. Like there was one out of Gray Eagle Golf Course. That was a massive failure in the sewer line. So,
And do we have the authority, with septics to hook them on to sewer, or is that just a voluntary thing if they're not in the city?
that's a great question. So we don't require them to hook up to us. But what happens is, yeah, if they're not in Fishers, the county health department may decide not to allow them to replace their septic. They may say, hey, look, there's no capacity here for you to put another septic back in. Same could be true with our public health department within the city. That's a one-on-one decision. What I think we should be looking at doing, personally, if we have some excess sewer revenues, I think we should be going out to these unincorporated areas that are in our community today that don't have sewer and say to them, hey, look, if you're willing to annex voluntarily, we'll bring sewer to your front door as a partnership for you, because it really does become a win-win. I mean, because really environmentally, in an urban area, we shouldn't be having concentrations of septic fields. And at the same time, if we're able to bring those people into our community, that's a more efficient delivery of services. So I do think with this rate increase, we'll have the ability to go out and do some of those programs. That's what we did at Rosanna Village. And they're coming into the city.
And I would say that you have that option now that you didn't have when it's privately held.
100%. But in fact, they actually held up, if you remember, when it was privately held. I think you guys were on the council. When we did Cottingham Estates.
Oh.
HSC was, I mean, we weren't sure we were going to get it done because they wanted it a certain way and weren't going to compromise on the design of it. It was really difficult.
That's one of the intangible benefits of us owning all this
Right.
is that we're able to do things because working with HSC at times was challenging to be nice about it. And also from an economic development perspective, we're able to be able to work through those things and not have to deal with an intimate party that's gonna pull things up and it costs the taxpayer more money.
Do we know how much, what the percentages of people that still are in septic systems that we would like?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. We do have, there are significant pockets of it. Like you look at the annexation we're doing right now, Luxhaven, all along Fall Creek right there, they're all on septic. Linwood Hills,
I was gonna say,
that's a big neighborhood that is on septic,
60 some houses.
All on septic, huh?
all on septic.
Wow.
I would venture a guess, if you drive around town, anywhere where there's a big lot and there's like no sidewalk in front of it or no path, chances are it's not in Fishers and it's on septic, would be my guess.
The 1960s ranch.
100%.
Yeah.
Two types of septic system, ones that have failed and ones that haven't failed yet.
Yeah, exactly right. No, you're right. Let's move on to EMS.
Yep. Next slide here. So, again, adjustment, proposed for 25. The blue really is, what we're proposing, and it's quite simply just the average, between the four large Hamilton County, cities. So again, we'd still be below, Carmel and Westfield. But that's a proposal. There's three different, really, there's basic life support, advanced life support 1, and advanced life support 2. And Chief Arena said it could geek out for days on the difference of those things. But this really is a use rate, if you will, right? God forbid you have to use an ambulance service, this would be the rate we would charge for folks here.
So what's a little bit, just so everybody's on the same page about this, if we have two different rate structures, we have a resident structure and a non-resident structure. So if we pick you up in Fishers and you don't live here, you're gonna be billed a different rate because you're not paying taxes to subsidize the use of that service, which seems appropriate. Even though these billing rates are what they are, 75% of the people that we transport in Fishers in an ambulance today that are Fishers residents are Medicare and Medicaid patients. Primarily Medicare, not so much Medicaid, but a lot of Medicare, a lot of elderly folks. Those folks will only pay whatever Medicare and Medicaid says they'll reimburse us. So these rates are not reflective of what the vast majority of Fishers residents will actually pay, because if you're on Medicare, the city of Fishers, you're just getting whatever Medicare is willing to pay you. That's a set rate. Non-residents the same way. If you're on Medicare and you're a non-resident, I don't care what our bill says, you're only gonna get this amount. So those revenues, those fees are a little bit misguided or misrepresented because the vast majority of the people we're transporting, 75% of our residents are Medicare eligible. 52%, I believe, non-resident are Medicare or Medicaid. So they're only getting billed at that rate. This actually equates to, I think, Elliot, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe a increase in revenue of $300,000 or $400,000 a year.
That's what we anticipate, $300,000 plus. Correct.
So we're going from 532 for a basic ambulance run to 947.
No, we're going to go to 940. We're gonna be 948. The other three, we're the blue, the other three kind of greenish are the other Hamilton County ones. So,
So you're,
So, yeah, so currently for non-residents, basic life support, it's $450 for Fishers today,
And we're going to,
$947.
we're doubling.
the last time I believe these were adjusted would have been back in,
Yes, a slight adjustment in 22.
yeah, I think we just did this a little bit, but I think that was more non-resident if I remember on that. For the, just pulls from the data ordinance. But
Does this have anything to do on one of the previous slides we had, that we were taking over, was it life support or what?
they, one of the things just, the fire department is in their, when you look at their departmental budget, they are taking over, I think it's taking over supplying Project Lifesaver is what they call it at the county level. And that's, I think
that's the
Yeah.
missing person.
yes, that's the missing, like, it's just a,
So if you have a person, let's say that has dementia, and I think they put if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this, I think they put a wristband on them. And then if they go missing, we have the technology to then go find them, I believe.
yeah, so that.
But that has nothing to do with
With
this.
this, yeah, that was just a note of like, if,
Okay.
when you look at their departmental budget, they are absorbing that cost that was previously paid by the county for that program. The county has decided to no longer support that program, so they are taking that cost on to be able to continue that
My-
program.
My policy thought on EMS billing is, so ambulances went from what's the cost of an ambulance today versus what it was?
$350, $4,000, it's probably $150.
So it's doubled. Our cost of manpower has certainly gone up. And the cost of pharmaceuticals that go on the ambulance have gone up significantly. You guys really have a couple options there. One, you just continue to subsidize more of the cost of that service, which means you're taking tax dollars, income tax, property tax dollars away from your ability to hire more police officers or pave more roads or whatever service you deem as a priority. While at the same time, the vast majority of Fishers residents are either Medicare or they're privately insured. And so who you're really helping by subsidizing these costs, these services, are your insurers. Like, that's who really benefited for us keeping an artificially low billing amount. And what happened in state law this last year is they got a bill passed that basically said, hey, private insurers, because what was happening is private insurers were beating up on these private EMS companies that were working all around the state. They weren't paying them anything for transporting people. And these EMS services were going belly up. They're like, we literally can't provide the services. So they got a bill passed that said, insurers, from now on, you have to pay 400% of whatever Medicare says it will pay. And so for us, I think it's from a policy perspective, I think it's appropriate to put the cost to some extent of these services on the insurers to pay the bill for this versus taxpayers continuing to subsidize it. That's why I think it's appropriate to see increases on this front.
So, we'll start talking about community center, but beforehand, just to, base that everyone on our cash reserves, right? So, our internal policy for 25 would have us at a cash reserve requirement of $16.6 million. We will be at $33.4 million. So significantly more in cash reserves than even the internal policy that you guys have set forth, which is why we feel confident in this next slide's proposal for the community center. So again, we're going to open this thing up in October, November timeframe of 2025. So we'll have about 2 months worth of revenue. So we anticipate a fairly modest amount of revenue in 25 of just under $500,000. So we want to set this department up for success and seed it. The vast majority of that will go towards personnel, 13 full-time employees, hiring into 25, and then some placeholders for supplies, professional services and capital as well. So a total of 2.6 in expenses. So we're recommending seeding with cash reserves $2.3 million into that fund that we discussed this past Monday night at City Council.
Any questions on that?
Well, I got a couple, just one thing I think we need to be more watchful as a committee. We've got, so you brought up a great point about our sewer fund and take a look at that, but we've got these two enterprise funds now, the community center and the event center. It has, especially the event center, we've got varying components of income flowing in from all kinds of sources.
Yeah.
This one's not as robust as that, but still, I think we need to see as a group how these entities are performing. I would say we're going to need to see financial statements and how it's performing, because if we're short, taxpayers on the hook.
Correct.
So I think we need to have a little bit, I think our committee needs to have more information as we put these online.
And John, I would welcome your advice or input as to what those look like or what those need to look like. That's your world. So if you have some ideas on like a monthly P&L sheet or, just what is it that really gives you a good snapshot of how these things are performing?
Okay.
I would welcome that, because then maybe we can build it into our software applications, which make it automated, where we could say, hey, finance committee, here's your monthly report on,
It doesn't mean monthly, maybe quarterly, we'll see.
however you
Yeah,
think
it's
it's appropriate.
I think it's something we need to have our eyes on as a group.
Yeah.
If you all agree. Just so we can track it.
I know that Jake, in his experience with the community center, is very comfortable with the idea of literally running it like hey, every week, where are we at? Are we making money? Are we losing money? And that's our expectations, that this is going to be run like a profit center, and the event center is the same thing. I just think we need to figure out the best way to get that information to you guys in a standardized format that we're all on the same page about.
And it'll come, because I think too, we'll have to figure out the best way to do that, because Jake and I met and we really discussed in depth, like the revenue assumptions for this. But one of the things he and I, we talk about is membership fees. Like, he's going to collect some membership fee, joining fees. Those don't roll in until this. And so, when we were putting this, together, and looking at this, I would say this is an extremely realistic, especially like from, and maybe not a lot of, some cushion on some different numbers, but very realistic on the revenue and that kind of stuff. But definitely on the reporting side, he and I have had a lot of conversations about what that looks like to report out to other people and to kind of get that up and flowing.
Okay, next slide. So this is a bit of a recommended change in how we handle nonprofits from previous years to 2025. So you guys are all familiar with our nonprofit committee. So this recommendation is to essentially eliminate that committee and charge city administration with allocating the $250,000 to various nonprofits that support our community. And so this slide highlights our recommendation for that $250,000. Conner Prairie receiving $75,000 as one of the largest outdoor museums in the country and a home for Fishers, Indiana. Between YMI and YAP, combined $90,000. I say combined between YMI and YAP, if those stay separate entities or if they end up combining, but $90,000 allocated to those two organizations that support our community. The Cherish Center does fantastic work and really was allocated $35,000 to the Cherish Center for everything they do for us. And then this one's a bit new here, but I've got a placeholder of $50,000 go towards nonprofit programming at our community center. So different organizations that may support senior programming or special needs programming at our community center, having a bucket of money of $50,000 to help initiate and support those efforts there. That would make up that $250,000 that we've in past years allocated towards the committee to distribute as they see fit. Questions on
I have
that?
a question on this. So, I know, we're always getting asked to get a table at this event or this event or this event. And some of the events, we're the only community there, the only municipality that doesn't have a table. And I know Cecilia's been working on this. Will there be funds available that if we decide as a council, hey, we want to go to
There should
the
be.
Humane Society, or, I think we just went to, what was it, Prevail or something like that, that we should be able to get a table at some of those events?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could put in a line item specifically for that. If you guys
I think that'd be appropriate for miscellaneous programs. I mean, if we put $25,000 in there or something that is available for whatever community function you need to be at, I think is appropriate. And it also shows goodwill to those different groups that were there and present. I think that makes sense. But I think talking to all of you and having been through multiple years of conversations around the nonprofit committee. And really what's interesting is we have all these conversations, we spend all this time on this, people get very irritated. And then at the end of the day, we don't really deviate all that much from the basic group we usually fund anyways. And so really our point here is, if you guys want to change it, this is the time. You guys are the finance committee, go to council for the budget. If you don't agree with my proposal, vote it down or change it or however you want to do it, but let's just do it now and be done with it. Versus, going through a whole other process, asking the nonprofit community to do all these different applications that take a lot of time. This just seems like a more streamlined approach. But
I think it's a lot less drama, 100% support it. We just like to make sure we have that ability to do those.
and look, this is
Events.
the first iteration of the budget. So between now and when we approve it in October, if you guys have concerns, changes or whatever, then work it through the finance committee, talk about it in council and, we're amenable, we're open to discussion. I just think this is, our best shot at it so far.
Couple of questions. The police chief Gephardt mentioned that possibly fee for service for Cherish.
That's the way I would structure it.
So is that like you're appropriating that amount, but it's still gonna be fee for service, or you're just gonna?
I would prefer for it to be a fee for service myself so that we can track how much usage is there, but yeah. That would be that agreement.
Okay, and then, you know, we had discussions like, you know, Bill and I, you know, were really wanting to make sure the seniors and with disability, we appreciate it. Now with the community center, we're gonna offer the things that we had provided through the nonprofit grants. Some of those programming and things are gonna be given, those services will be given within the community center, which is good, which for seniors, people with disabilities. I had talked about, the wheelchairs. I don't know where that falls in, but we do need, 2 water wheelchairs, one for the Geist Water Park and one for the new community center.
So I
So
talked
I
to Jake
think
yesterday
Jake
on
was-
that. The community center, in the construction, it does have, that accessibility component for, aquatics there. And on the Geist Waterfront Park, you looked at a variety of, water wheelchairs. They're around $2,500. So he's working with Jennifer Skolsky right now, to get some input from an ADA, compliance standpoint. And we'll just buy that through the park's operational fund.
So I do-
We have that.
I do think this $50,000 one will change. Like this year, it makes sense to put that in there because we're gonna probably be buying supplies and equipment for both senior and folks with disabilities, the things that we just didn't think of when we were building out the community center. But then in 26, it might be something else on that. I don't know that it would be a line item every year for $50,000 for that. This could be a one-time, hey, we're building out the space for all the equipment they need. And then the next year, it could be another cause or need in the city of
And
Fishers.
then I spoke with Jake and he said that they're gonna phase in the programming for the seniors and for people with like adaptive programs for disabilities and whatnot. Cause like when the community center opens, there's only gonna be a couple months of that year for next year that it'll be running. And so gradually they're gonna be offering, they've got to hire, again, the right people to get the right programming and things like that. So it's going to be evolving. So just so you know, initially there may not be a lot going on for those populations, but my understanding is that as we evolve, it's gonna evolve to have.
But clearly there'll be some groups that we've been funding perhaps that aren't fit into these categories.
That's correct. And those would just be a hodgepodge of. Ashley would maybe know better, but every year it changes, like the smaller dollar amount ones. From year to year, they're different, so I don't know. Someone might have gotten money 2 years ago that didn't get any money this year.
And they're typically associated with, health related, nonprofits or behavioral health, nonprofits. And so I don't want to speak out of
Yeah, that's a
turn,
great
but
point.
it could be something that transitions to the health department from a support or grant standpoint.
It's a great point that Ashley brings up. So the health department is also granting dollars. Like Trinity Free Clinic, we have a contract with them. So yeah, any of the social services, health, mental health, all that kind of stuff would likely fall under the public health conversation. We'll move on to the debt. So provide any feedback on this as we move forward. Well, certainly Selena will add that line item for miscellaneous, I guess we call it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
What is the dollar amount? The right dollar amount? Isn't it time to review that?
No, there's time to review that. Yeah, if you guys have pushback on that or you want to think through that, let us know.
Okay, so infrastructure, again, Mecky will be here on Monday, so to talk in more detail, with you guys, but some of the most notable projects that you should see, happening in 2025, the biggest one's probably 116th and Allisonville roundabout, starting and completing 2025. Another big item is the Nickel Plate Trail Bridge over 96th Street, as well as 136th Street widening. We do have, a placeholder for $4.3 million of road resurfacing. Another significant investment. I know that the question will always be which neighborhoods specifically are going to get that resurfacing package. And it's always a bit TBD, right? So our public works, our engineering teams always go out and do their patient ratings to understand closer into the late fall, what actual neighborhoods or roads need resurfaced next spring. And so we've got an idea, but we'll really fine tune that in the coming month.
What's that delta on that financial dollar from last year?
4.3, is similar to last year. It was 4.4 million on the dot. It's a very, comparable number from 24 to 25. And then projects completed in 24, you guys probably already driven 126 in Southeastern, 96 in Aliceville could close up, be substantially complete this year, and 141st in Prairie Baptist, and then ongoing, of course, is State Road 37 and 141st, which should be substantially complete, by the end of 25 as well.
And then keep in mind, when that project gets done, it's hard to remember way back when we were negotiating this with Governor Pence. The road 37 goes back to the state. So right now we're maintaining 37 from a public works standpoint, but it's only until the completion of the project. Then we hand it back over to NDOT, has the responsibility of maintaining that road long term, which is fantastic from my perspective because we're not resurfacing that road. We're not maintaining the bridges. We don't have to plow snow on it. That all goes back to NDOT. So
And when did that happen?
as soon as the road's complete.
Are we just done with this?
Well, 31st of, so it'd be probably summer of 25. I think we'd be done with 141st, 37, I would think.
When does 146 in Allisonville finish now? You know?
I thought the end of the year, but I don't know, actually, do you know?
I think it goes into 25, but I think it is mostly complete by
They
then.
got some work to do based on what ran by last night.
Yeah, I was gonna say they have some work there. My concern is you got about 141st and 37, 146 and
I-
Allisonville, and now you're gonna start, you know, if we start
I
on,
can confidently say that this year is the worst year. Between everyone globally doing things, because you have 146 in Allisonville, you have 96 in Allisonville, you have 141st and 37, and then you have in Carmel, they're doing Hazeldale. And so we've literally, and then you've got Clear Path at 465 and 69. So you just got a lot going on. Next year clears up a lot, and Becky and I are very clear. 116th in Allisonville, 146 in Allisonville has to be open, 96 in Allisonville has to be open by the time we move forward with 116th in Allisonville.
and that's a promise, right?
Yes.
All right.
In our plan right now, I mean, I can't commit to this, but our plan at the moment is to do a complete closure. And just go knock it out, like 65 days, just close it and get it done versus 6 months of switching traffic. And we think, and remember, we're gonna take those private roads and make them public. And then use some of that for detour routes. That also solves some of the Mike Colby private road challenges over there. But our intent would be to just close this and get it done as fast as humanly possible.
Is trail work included in this, or is that?
That's a
Yes.
good point.
Yeah, and the most significant, trail component for next year is the Nickel Plate Trail Bridge.
There is
over 96th Street.
quite a bit of trail work gonna be done around the community center. So money that we have actually allocated this year will be going to work on tying communities to the community center. There's a real gap in trails out there where we're building the community center. So there's a lot of work there. There's also work at 131st Street by the Nickel Plate Trail, tying east-west to the Nickel Plate Trail. And then as you saw down here on Lantern, we're starting to work on that project as well.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Those are 24 funds towards those projects.
Yeah.
A lot of those will drag into 25, just by the nature of the beast, so to speak, but.
What I'd like to see on that is, I know you're in communication with, River Glen,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
but Sunblast is gonna be used as a huge cut through. I don't care if it's a major cut through. Apple Maps, Waze are gonna guide people through there. I mean, just like Harrison Park is right now.
Yeah.
Or 146. I think it would be good if the city started communication with some of the people along those main roads that's gonna be utilized as cut throughs. I think we can go through and identify them. Tim probably can, but if you need help,
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think Ashley and her team, we're gonna get ramped up as soon as I wanna be able to speak concretely about plans. Last thing I wanna do is say we're gonna do one thing and then do something else. So I think we're getting very close to really going, okay, we're gonna close it. Here's the time frame. We're gonna close it. Here's the detour routes. Once we have all that, then I think we'll get to work on making sure the neighbors are notified.
okay.
Yeah, I can share kind of our standard practice. We've gotten pretty good at knowing what to do, to notify neighbors, and it's pretty thorough. So I can send you kind of an overview of once we do have information, that we'll start to execute.
I just have a lot of neighbors with
Oh, yeah.
West that
Yeah.
are getting very nervous.
Well,
It's gonna become a major thoroughfare. It's
No.
like, yeah, I know.
A lot of cars gonna move through there.
Okay, and we went a little long, I appreciate you guys. So this kind of wraps up, everything we've talked about before. I think the biggest foot stomp for the year, really is a property tax rate remains flat. Investing, into our existing staff and our teammates with a 6%, proposed raise across the board, I think is quite substantial. It will be appreciated, and then really, setting our community center up for success. Kind of the big highlights or takeaways for our proposed budget for 25.
Do you want to put a point on the reason we're able to do this 457? I hate looking at the back of my head. I just realized how bald I'm getting.
Just embrace it.
It's just.
Yeah.
Low maintenance, low maintenance. The reason we're able to do this to reward our employees is really goes back to saving money. It's not getting new revenue. The property tax money that we're getting, the income tax money that we're getting, as you can see, is actually a detriment. We're getting less income tax money than Noblesville. It's not new revenue that allows us to do this. It's two things. One, the productivity of our employees, because we don't have a bunch of them sitting around. And two, the healthcare side of it. Like by reducing healthcare costs, we just shifted that line item over to saying, okay, we can reward you as an employee. That's where that opportunity comes from. It's not from raising more revenues out of the pockets of our residents. It's genuinely from finding efficiencies and cost savings and then putting it right back into the people that found those efficiencies and cost savings. So that's, I think, an important component of that conversation. Any final questions, comments?
Are we able to get a copy?
Yeah, can you email it to everybody?
Absolutely. We will. We'll get the updated fiscal plan.
And the budget presentation.
And bright early Monday morning, 8:30, we intend to have police, fire, engineering, health department, parks and rec. We'll have Jake talk about the community center and our public works teams coming in to talk with you all about their detailed budgets. Anyone additional you guys would like to hear from?
Tracy.
Gainer, IT, love to come and say hi to you guys.
And if there's anything in particular with the department that you want to know about, shoot Elliot an email ahead of time, because I want to make sure our people are prepared to answer your questions.
Please, thank you.
So,
To that point, thank you, Mayor. On the infrastructure, I would kind of like an aging report.
Belinda would probably be the right person for that. Anything else, just email us over time.
What are the biggest struggles right now that they think we're gonna have to finance in the future? So that when we can start preparing for this stuff, if fire comes in and says, hey, within the next 3 years, I'm gonna need 3 new fire trucks. Okay, we need to be aware of that. Those type of things, just kind of.
I do think, she's not on the list, but I actually do think, unless Elliot, maybe you can speak to it. I will tell you, one of the biggest financial threats that we have right now is our fleet. The cost associated with equipment has gone up, literally 200%.
Yeah.
So having Tabitha or you talk about just what that means to us is, because a ladder truck now is what, $2 million?
Correct. And it also, it takes 3 years now to get a ladder truck. It took 10 months before. And so we're trying to get creative and intelligent about, a payment plan, right? So we'll pay for the ladder truck over 3 years. So we're not throwing money away, not receiving it until 2027. So I'll bring Tabitha in. I can support the conversation on Monday as well regarding that.
Big challenge. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Run, Jenny, right?